Strength rises when God anchors your heart at the start of the day. Peace settles when His presence becomes your first focus. My friends, your morning gains power the moment you turn to God. Your spirit finds balance when His truth reaches you early. Your confidence grows when His guidance shapes your direction. Your courage becomes steady when your heart leans on His strength. Every day brings voices, demands, and unexpected moments that try to pull you away from peace. Some moments will lift you, others will challenge you. A believer who begins the day with God stands firm through both. Ephesians 6 verse 11 says, "Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." This scripture reminds you that protection begins with action. The call is clear. Cover your spirit before you face the day. Psalm 144 verse 1 says, "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle." This verse shows how God prepares you long before challenges appear. Your preparation becomes meaningful because He shapes your strength. Morning is more than a start to the calendar. Morning is a spiritual doorway that sets the tone for everything that follows. A heart anchored in God moves with purpose. A mind guarded by truth responds with clarity. A spirit covered in His presence walks with confidence. The armor you put on each morning reflects partnership with God. His power steadies your thoughts. His truth guards your peace. His presence strengthens your resolve. Direction becomes sharper when He guides your first steps. Fear loses impact when your spirit rests under His covering. Confusion weakens when His voice leads your decisions. These early moments matter more than many realize. A prepared believer does not wait for trouble to knock before reaching for protection. A steady heart answers to God before reacting to problems. A covered mind refuses to bend beneath sudden pressure. Some days feel smooth, other days shift quickly. Both require a believer who rises with spiritual awareness. A rushed start scatters your focus. A grounded start creates stability. A covered start strengthens every choice you make. Morning armor shapes your reactions, thoughts, and actions with divine clarity. Spiritual protection flows into your day when you choose God first. Strength remains firm because He sustains you. Peace lasts longer because He guards you. Purpose grows clearer because He leads you. My friends, the day cannot shape your spirit when God shapes your start. A believer who puts on armor at sunrise walks with boldness that does not depend on emotion. Today, I will teach you how to put on your armor every morning so your day begins with God, continues with strength, and ends with purpose. I am also going to pray a powerful prayer with you in the mighty name of Jesus. So watch until the end and open your hearts to receive the blessings of this prayer. Now, let us look at this powerful truth. Strength comes when you choose to put on your armor before anything else. My friends, authority settles into your spirit when you understand what the armor represents. Your identity grows firm when God's truth covers you at the start of the day. Strength rises inside you when righteousness stands guard over every thought you carry. A believer who knows their identity does not bend under sudden conflict or confusion. A believer who understands authority does not surrender ground to fear or intimidation. Many people walk into the world uncovered and wonder why their peace collapses so easily. A covered believer moves with a different presence because their spirit stands anchored in God. Authority does not come from emotion. Authority does not come from comfort. Authority flows from alignment with God through the armor He provides. Psalm 18 verse 39 says, "For you have armed me with strength for the battle." This verse reveals that God clothes you with power when you stand in His truth. Strength becomes more than a feeling. Strength becomes a spiritual position that shapes how you face each day. Righteousness protects your heart when lies try to claim your identity. Salvation guards your mind when doubt attempts to cloud your direction. Truth wraps around your spirit when confusion tries to steal your clarity. Every piece of armor affirms who you are in God. Every piece reminds your heart that authority does not shift with emotion. Every piece strengthens your steps, so you walk without hesitation or fear. Believers who ignore the armor often fall into cycles of discouragement. They allow frustration to guide their decisions. They allow insecurity to shape their responses. They allow fear to interrupt their purpose. Armor stops these cycles from gaining any influence in your life. When truth stands before you, lies cannot settle. When righteousness covers your heart, shame loses its voice. When salvation guards your mind, doubt cannot lead your thoughts. Authority grows inside you. When your armor remains in place, strength stands firm. When your spirit refuses to step outside God's covering, clarity becomes steady when you choose truth over confusion. Joshua 1 verse 9 says, "Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." This scripture speaks to the identity of a believer who carries courage through alignment with God. Courage rises when truth shapes your understanding of who you are. A believer covered in armor does not shrink in the face of difficulty. They rise with boldness because their heart knows the one who stands with them. This boldness is not arrogance. This boldness is not pride. This boldness is spiritual confidence that flows from alignment with truth. Authority begins when your heart embraces the identity God placed within you. Strength grows when you refuse to allow fear to define your next step. Peace holds steady when your spirit remembers the covering that surrounds you. The story of Gideon in Judges 6 verse 12 offers a fresh picture of this truth. The angel called him a mighty man of valor, even while he felt unqualified and afraid. Identity was spoken before strength appeared. Authority was declared before courage became visible. Gideon stepped into his calling when he accepted what God said about him. A believer grows in authority the moment they accept their God-given identity. Armor affirms that identity with every piece you put on. Truth tells you who you are. Righteousness protects who you are becoming. Salvation grounds the thoughts that shape your direction. A believer who wears armor does not negotiate with fear. They confront it with authority. They stand before it with clarity. They silence it with truth. Strength rises in every situation when you know you walk covered. Your decisions shift because your spirit stands anchored. Your actions change because your mind remains guarded. Your reactions soften because your heart feels protected. Authority becomes visible through your posture, your words, your tone, and your choices. Confusion loses ground when your mind stays aligned with salvation. Temptation weakens when righteousness guards your motives. Discouragement fades when truth becomes your steady foundation. Every attack against your identity collapses when armor stands in place. The enemy knows identity shapes destiny. This is why lies attack your confidence so often. This is why fear rises when purpose draws near. This is why confusion attempts to interrupt your clarity. Armor exposes these tactics and removes their influence. A believer rooted in identity walks with stability. A believer grounded in truth walks with wisdom. A believer covered in righteousness walks with purity of heart. Authority flows from this alignment. Strength becomes consistent through this covering. Courage remains steady when this armor stays in place. Psalm 3 verse 3 says, "But you, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head." This verse reveals the protection and confidence that come from God's covering. A shield affirms your security. A lifted head affirms your identity. A covered believer carries both with confidence. Your authority does not depend on feelings. Your authority stands on truth. Your identity does not depend on approval. Your identity flows from God. Armor reminds you of this every morning. Truth speaks louder than fear. Righteousness silences shame. Salvation guards your thoughts with clarity. A believer who wears armor walks with certainty, even when the path feels unclear. Courage rises when identity settles. Strength grows when truth remains. Authority becomes visible when armor stays in place. A covered heart responds with calm where others panic. A guarded mind thinks clearly where others feel overwhelmed. A steady spirit moves forward where others hesitate. This is the authority found in the armor. This is the identity wrapped within it. This is the strength available when you choose to wear it before anything else. A believer who understands this truth no longer walks uncovered into the battles of life. They stand prepared. They stand equipped. They stand confident. Armor transforms ordinary steps into powerful movements of faith. Authority shapes every decision. Identity shapes every thought. Strength shapes every response. This is the power that rests on a believer who chooses to put on their armor before anything else. Let us now focus on how the armor redirects your battles, so you stop fighting the wrong enemies. My dear friends, many struggles in life come from battles never assigned to you. A believer without armor often reacts to people instead of discerning the real attack. A believer covered in truth sees beyond the surface and recognizes deeper forces. The enemy works through distraction, irritation, and confusion to pull your focus away. Armor protects your attention from wandering into conflicts that weaken your spirit. Strength is wasted when your heart fights people rather than spiritual darkness. Wisdom grows when armor guides your reactions and choices. Truth helps you see the true source of conflict long before emotions rise. Righteousness keeps your motives clean while others expect you to respond in anger. Salvation guards your thoughts when tension tries to push you into arguments. Peace stands firm when pressure invites you into needless conflict. James 1 verse 19 says, "So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath." This verse directs your heart away from reaction and towards spiritual clarity. Armor creates distance between your emotions and the conflict around you. A covered believer does not rush into battles that drain energy and purpose. Discernment grows stronger when truth sits at the front of your mind. Some situations appear threatening, but carry no spiritual assignment. Some challenges feel urgent, but hold no purpose for your calling. Armor separates truth from noise, so you know what deserves your engagement. Many believers lose strength because they answer every provocation. They fight people who carry no real authority over their destiny. They argue with voices meant only to distract them. Armor shifts your attention back to the real battleground. You begin to recognize what is worth fighting and what must be ignored. Proverbs 20 verse 22 says, "Do not say, I will recompense evil, wait for the Lord, and he will save you." This verse guides you away from battles fueled by emotion. God directs victory, not anger. Armor keeps you aligned with his direction. A believer anchored in truth does not chase every conflict. A believer grounded in righteousness does not answer every insult. A believer covered in salvation does not collapse into frustration. Your identity shapes your battles. Your armor shapes your outcomes. This is why the enemy works hardest to push your focus toward people. He wants you drained. He wants you distracted. He wants you fighting shadows while real attacks grow unseen. Armor removes his influence by clearing your spiritual vision. When truth wraps around you, motives become visible. When righteousness covers you, manipulation loses its pull. When salvation guards you, fear loses command. Many believers struggle because they cannot see the real conflict behind the moment. A covered believer sees beyond the reaction. A covered believer hears beyond the words. A covered believer discerns beyond the surface. This is spiritual maturity. This is divine awareness. This is what armor creates in your daily walk. The story of Nehemiah gives a strong picture of this redirection. Enemies tried to pull him into arguments while he rebuilt the wall. They sent messages filled with accusation and fear. They wanted his focus. They wanted his time. They wanted his strength. Nehemiah refused each invitation because he saw the real tactic. He understood the battle was not about conversation. The battle concerned the work God called him to complete. A believer wearing armor sees temptation inside distraction. You recognize when someone wants your reaction rather than your progress. You sense when conflict is a trap instead of a necessity. You understand when silence carries more authority than speech. Armor redirects your strength so you remain aligned with God's assignment. This is how you stop fighting the wrong enemies. Some enemies are not people. Some enemies are thoughts. Some enemies are patterns. Some enemies are old cycles returning to regain control. Armor helps you identify these patterns before they grow. Truth exposes lies disguised as logic. Righteousness exposes motives hiding behind pressure. Salvation exposes fear pretending to be wisdom. You stop fighting shadows because armor reveals what matters. You stop wrestling with emotions because armor protects your heart. You stop engaging foolish arguments because armor guards your peace. Direction becomes clear when discernment strengthens. Purpose becomes focused when distractions lose power. Calm becomes steady when your spirit understands the real conflict. This is why battles feel different when you wear armor. Your mind remains steady under tension. Your heart stays quiet under provocation. Your steps remain firm under confusion. Nothing pulls you into chaos because truth filters every moment. People may try to provoke you. You stay anchored. Situations may challenge your patience. You stay covered. Voices may attempt to weaken your confidence. You stay guarded. Armor protects your purpose from being consumed by small battles. Armor guards your energy, so strength remains for real warfare. Armor shields your thoughts, so you do not fight from fear. A believer, led by armor, does not waste strength. A believer, guided by truth, does not follow every emotional tug. A believer shaped by righteousness does not fight simply because conflict appears. Spiritual battles require spiritual awareness. Armor lifts your vision above distraction. Armor anchors your heart above offense. Armor aligns your thoughts above confusion. Psalm 140 verse 7 says, "O God, the Lord, the strength of my salvation, you have covered my head in the day of battle." This verse reveals protection that shields your thinking during conflict. A covered mind does not fall into emotional warfare. A covered spirit does not collapse under false pressure. A covered believer does not fight what God never assigned. Wisdom flows when armor stays in place. Peace rises when emotion loses influence. Strength builds when focus remains clear. Discernment sharpens when truth directs your decisions. You become harder to provoke. You become harder to mislead. You become harder to defeat. This is the work of armor in your daily battles. You learn when to stand. You learn when to speak. You learn when to walk away. This is how battles shift. This is how peace strengthens. This is how purpose grows. Armor redirects your fight toward what matters. Armor keeps your attention on the true enemy. Armor positions your spirit for victory long before conflict begins. This is the power that rises when you stop fighting the wrong enemies. And let us now reflect on how the armor must stay active as you move through every season, every challenge, and every assignment God places before you. My friends, armor is not something you put on once and forget about. A believer who stays covered learns how to remain steady when the pace of life shifts. Strength grows when consistency becomes part of your spiritual rhythm. Authority deepens when your spirit refuses to step out of truth. Peace strengthens when your heart remains guarded day after day. Many believers wear armor in moments of trouble, but remove it when life feels calm. This creates weakness. This creates openings. This creates opportunities for confusion to enter unnoticed. Armor must become a daily covering that stays with you. Ephesians 6 verse 14 says, "Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness." This verse calls you to maintain readiness. A believer who stands with truth cannot be deceived easily. A believer covered in righteousness cannot be pulled into hidden traps. Your spirit remains strong when truth and righteousness stay active within you. Life will shift. People will change. Seasons will turn. Armor keeps your spirit stable through each change. Some days feel calm and steady. Other days feel heavy and demanding. Both require a believer who stays covered without wavering. Consistency matters. Discipline matters. Daily covering matters. When armor stays on, your reactions remain controlled even when emotions rise. Your steps remain clear even when decisions feel weighty. Your confidence stays grounded even when uncertainty surrounds you. Psalm 119 verse 33 says, "Direct my steps by your word, and let no iniquity have dominion over me." This verse strengthens the truth that direction grows clearer when the heart stays covered. A believer guided by the word does not lose their footing. A believer protected by truth does not surrender to hidden influences. A believer anchored in righteousness rises above compromising situations. Daily life presents more spiritual battles than most people realize. Some attacks appear small, some appear harmless, some appear irrelevant. Armor reveals the true nature of each moment. A believer without armor may overlook spiritual danger hiding behind routine tasks. A believer with armor sees the trap before the trap forms. A believer with armor walks with awareness that prevents unnecessary defeat. This is why consistency must become a priority. Strength is not built in moments of ease. Strength is built through continual alignment with God's truth. Every day you remain covered, your spirit grows stronger. Every day you guard your heart, your focus sharpens. Every day you protect your mind, your clarity increases. A believer who stays covered cannot be easily moved. They withstand tension. They withstand temptation. They withstand confusion. The story of King Asa shows the danger of abandoning spiritual covering. In 2 Chronicles 14 verse 11, Asa cried out to God for help against a vast army. His trust was strong. His covering was firm. His heart stood steady. God gave him victory because he remained aligned. But years later, Asa faced another challenge. Instead of seeking God, he relied on human strength. He abandoned the spiritual covering that once protected him. The result shifted his destiny. This story teaches a vital truth. A believer can start strong, but lose strength when they stop relying on God. Armor must stay in place. Truth must remain active. Righteousness must guard the heart continually. Salvation must shield the mind daily. A believer who removes armor becomes vulnerable without realizing it. A believer who stays covered grows mature.